Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Chester. You know what I like to do on my show. I want to enlighten, inspire, and empower you to become your best self. Now, Scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And today we want to get you fired up about friendship, perseverance, resilience, independence, and accountability. We're talking about a children's book. My guest today is Dr. Martha Joseph Watts, and we're talking about her newest book. Now, you guys know that I love children's authors because they are molding the minds of our little ones. So you know what I'm going to tell you? Go on, get comfy, get cozy, because we are about to get started. Thank you so much, Dr. Martha, for joining me today. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Dr. Angela. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, with the setting, there may be someone who's saying, well, you know, Dr. Watts, you put it in the Caribbean. Why didn't you make it stateside? So my question is, does it matter where you reside? Will it affect you one way or the other with how you understand or can visualize the book?
Not at all. So Iyani, although Iyani is set in the Caribbean, all the themes in there are universal. So two things can happen. A person from the mainland who's reading Iyani can do one of two things. They can actually go ahead and look up the Virgin Islands. They can find out if those places are real. Like one of my readers said, she said, I actually looked it up. I had a virtual tour of the Virgin Islands. So that is one.
That's awesome.
Yeah, she said to me, I had a virtual tour of the Virgin Islands. So she said, the places are real, the trees are real, the plants are real. And so she was able to see that everything was real. But at the same time, when she applied it to her classroom, she had her students look for trees where she resided. What trees are native to Florida? What animals are prominent in Florida? And so people can apply to wherever they live. It doesn't matter where they live because students everywhere need resilience, they need perseverance, they need self-control, they need self-confidence. All of the themes are universal and they can be applied anywhere, whether the person is on the coast of Africa or they're in the inland, wherever they are, or they're in Brazil, which is where Iyani's ancestors came from. Wherever they are, concepts are applicable.
I love it. As you were sharing that, I was thinking, what an awesome way to teach the children how to be self-aware of being able to compare and contrast and go, oh, wow, she has a tree like that, and we have trees like this, or she does that, and we do that too, to be able to put yourself in the story. I love it. That is awesome. Now, I want to ask you a little bit more about the themes that you chose. Are there any particular themes that you portrayed or you wish to portray in the series, and why are you choosing those particular themes?
Awesome. So one of the things I paid attention to, social emotional is a big issue right now in school. It's just so sensitive. And also some are sensitive and some are not sensitized to other people's feelings at all. So I have here in a section in the book where Iyani is the beginning, actually, beginning of chapter 1. Iyani is walking towards her friends with a flower in her hair, and they do not know why she's wearing a flower on her head, and so they are saying things. One is saying, oh, she just feels patriotic, and her other friend says, oh, she just wants to be seen, and the other one says, oh, she just wants the boy, Yan. She just wants Yan to notice her. But Iyani, what she does, she just hisses. She hisses in disgust. It's like, here they go again. And she just dismisses everybody. So here it is. Because Iyani is self-aware, she knows that they're trying to make her upset, and she can just go ahead and just go off on them. But she chooses instead to it's like, okay, I'm not going to take you all on today, and she walks away. Mm-hmm. And so is just the whole idea that Iyani, although she's self-confident, she's also aware that, hey, these girls, what they've just said is about to make me upset, and if I just go towards them or I just take them on, I'm going to be, all of the things that we're not supposed to be. Another thing is, in the group, the girls have their codes of conduct that before they say something, they have to think about it. Is it fair? Is it kind? And how would I feel if it's said to me? But when they're telling those things to Iyani, they're not even thinking of their codes of conduct. So it's just to show students that even sometimes we make promises. I mean, you can think of it in marital relationships. You can think of it in community norms and mores. We make promises, but sometimes we forget. We allow our feelings to take over, and then we break all of the promises that we make. We say things that we're not supposed to say. And so this is an instance where these girls have vowed that they would question, they would think before they speak. Is it kind? Is it fair? How would I feel if it said to me? But they did. Right. So that's one of the areas where one of the themes that I was really deliberate in.
I would love for you, if you could please, can you remind everyone what is the title of your book, where can we get a copy, and how do we stay in contact with you?
My book is The Adventures of Iyani. It is actually a series. The first one is The Adventures of Iyani, The Voyage West. The second one in the series is The Adventures of Iyani, The Incredible Beginning. You can find me at Buddin, Buddin, writers at gmail.com or buddinwriters.com.
Now you know where you can pick up a copy of the book. We'll be back right after this. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Chester. Now, Dr. Martha, I have to ask you about Iyani just a little bit more. I love what you're doing here, and I want for people to make sure that they understand that you really put thought into writing your book and to helping our little ones. Now, Iyani is set in the Caribbean in St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands, but how can readers in the U.S. mainland or in other parts, let's say they're in our heartland, how can they enjoy the story to the best? Now, you gave us an example about the teacher, and I think that's awesome sauce. Well, what if you purchase this? You're just a parent, and you decide to purchase this just on the shopping trip. How should those students or those children best enjoy your book?
Quite a few things. It's going to open a door for research, number one, because I was speaking to some adults, and they're like, what is soursop? What is Kenneth? So there are fruits in there that they probably never heard in their area, or they might look it up and say, oh, we have that fruit, but we call it by another name. And so what it's doing is, one of the things, Dr. Angela, is that we have a system where we spend so much energy on teaching students skills that we tend to spend less time and effort on knowledge. And so I remember being at a school a few years ago, and we were on a field trip with my students from the Virgin Islands, and these were the Catholics. These were bright students. And they asked my students, did you all drive to come here? So I felt terrible because I'm here. Look, obviously these kids have not conceptualized that if you live on an island, the only way you can get off that island is by a boat or a plane. And they were asking my students if they drove to come to the mainland state where we were. So the whole idea of just reading things that are outside of your setting, they will give you that knowledge base that you need to be able to develop that background knowledge when you come to take tests and do all of those things. And one of the things I want to applaud homeschooling parents for is that they are not restricted to curriculum. They will introduce their students to almost anything. And that's why these students do well, because their parents give them the opportunities to read things from different cultural settings. They're not going to say, oh, well, that's not on our book reading list, like general schools will say. They will allow their students to read almost any and everything. I was speaking to a lady who takes care of about 12 or so homeschooling students. And she said when she realized in her social studies lesson that the students could not conceptualize that the Caribbean islands were separate, she literally gave each student one island to research during their geography lesson as a homeschooling team. Now, think of the public school system. They will only teach what the curriculum states, not what they feel students should know. So the whole idea of Iyani, yes, it is set in the Caribbean, but it will give parents an opportunity to introduce their students to other cultures, other fruits, other trees, plants that are indigenous to other places, and of course, they can apply that to the setting that they live in.
I love it. As I was listening to your answer, it made me think about how people have a tendency to think that everyone does what they do, or they live the way they live, or they talk the way they talk, or dress the way they dress, because that's the context in which you formulate your thoughts of, wow, everyone must be doing what I'm doing because we all live in this community. And what a beautiful way of asking the students or the reader to kind of stretch a little bit and go to that next step. Poor kids, I can see how they're like, wow, you drove all the way here from the island? That's a really far drive. Not understanding that's not how that works. But I do, in their innocence in asking the question. I love that. Now, how can a parent and a teacher work together? Is there anything that they can do if a teacher is utilizing your book in the classroom? Is there a way for the parent to kind of have a follow-up or homework to help the student or the child continue on the ride that you've given them, the imagination ride that you've brought to them?
Awesome. So here's what quite a few things teachers and parents can do. So the aspect I addressed a while ago was just the cultural aspect, knowing other cultures, other foods. For example, one of the boys when I told him I was writing a story on the islands, he said, oh, if you live on the island, you pretty much only eat coconuts. So I realized that there was a misconception again that island people only had coconuts to interact with. So that was something that it helps derail misconceptions. But another way parents can help, and teachers can also help too, is by looking at literary devices. Because as a language arts teacher, I was deliberate in making sure that I had similes, metaphors, quite a bit of them in there, where we had those cultural and as well as even animals that are not even native or present on the island. So I had comparisons to a chameleon. I had comparisons to a cheetah. And I also had comparisons to a butterfly that changes. So I kind of made sure that people would be able to relate no matter where they are. I also have comparisons to gymnastics. We don't do gymnastics on the islands, but we also have comparisons to stilt dancers. Stilt dancers are what we call mokojumbis in some of the islands. So we have those both. So I wanted it to be where anybody who chose to read that book would have questions they can ask. One of the other concepts in there is immigration. Iyani in the second book is very curious. She's asking her mom, so if Brazil is so sweet with all those tall trees and big rivers, why are we here? And these are questions that students ask their parents. We have a lot of immigrant parents in the States or wherever they live, and they may have questions. How did we get here? If where you came from was so sweet, why are we here? And these are questions parents are going to have to answer for generations.
And I like how you're saying that with culture, it opens up and allows for conversation about culture, because for so many people, they are here stateside from a different place. And even for some, their family has moved from one part of the country to another part of the country. Mm-hmm. Perhaps you were born and raised on the East Coast, and now you find yourself raising your family on the West Coast, or vice versa. Right. So there are so many different things. Even being in the United States, moving to another state, it can be very similar to the culture shock that you experience moving from one country to another country, just because people are so incredibly different. I love that. What a wonderful way of opening up the eyes of little ones. I have to admit, I'm so glad that my parents exposed us to the cultural diversity of the world. And in explaining how we are more alike, though there are things that make us different, these are the things where we overlap, and look at how we are all of one breath. I love that you're doing that.